Oh, hey there, guys. So I'm here today to talk to you about something called overloading. This is pretty exciting, so let's go ahead and get started. All right, here's what overloading is. So we say methods are overloaded when you have multiple methods with the same name, but they have different inputs. So we're going to talk about what this looks like in your code, and then also talk about some examples that you might have already seen. So I have here created a very simple human class, just has a name and age, and it sets this up. This is a simplified version of our person class. So we're going to give some examples of an overloaded method that we're going to call noise. So here's one version. So my first version is void and has no inputs. Okay, so I could just do public, this is just not just an object, so public void noise, and let's see, Halloween is coming up, so we'll just go ahead and do that. System that out, print line, boo. Okay, so that's a method like you've been doing before, but now we're going to make another method that maybe is going to repeat this. So say you want a multiple, or not a multiple, but say you want to say something else. So you might have a public noise, but here you are given something. So this version has the same name. It is also called noise, but now inputs a string. Okay, so in this case, I'm just going to say print out whatever is given to me. So in this case, I'll just print out, okay, whatever the given is. Okay, so notice they're both called noise, but we can differentiate between the two because they have different inputs. Now, I could also have different types and different numbers of inputs. So I could have one version that would print out, like, let's say a given, and it would do that a certain number of times. So this will repeat given n times. So let's just call it n, I guess. It'd probably be better. All right, so let's write this method. So this would be pretty similar. And maybe what this method would do is have a for loop to go through n times. So I is 0, I is less than n. That's the wrong I. And then we do an I plus plus. Okay. And in this case, we'll just go ahead and print out the given. System.out.println given. Okay. So that'll go ahead, and again, these all can do different things. You could put whatever, I could have it be a totally different method if I want, but the key is they have different inputs. These methods could do totally different things. Like I could have this change instance variables if I want, but it must have different inputs. Now, when you want to call these methods, you might wonder if your program is going to get confused, but no, Java is going to know which one to call based on which method you call. So first off, let's set up a human. So human famous equals a new human. I don't know, let's do Brad Pitt. I don't know how old he is. In my mind, he's eternally 35 and beautiful. But let's say he's 45. He's getting a little up there. I think he's in his 50s. I won't give him 50s. I'll look that up later for you. Actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's look it up now. Brad Pitt age. 56. Unbelievable. The man looks incredible. All right. So now that he's 56, if I call these methods, so when I call the methods, Java will know which version to call based on what I call, or based on what I put in parentheses. So if I just do famous.noise, it's going to know, okay, now I call the one with no inputs. And when I do famous.noise, says Fight Club Rules, probably his best movie, then this looks for a noise method with a string. So it's looking for a noise that has a string for an input, so it's going to call that one. If I do, let's do another one of his classic movies. Let's say we do 7, and we want to print that out 7 times. That's what it would look like. So I'm looking, okay, a string and an int. Which one of these takes a string and an int? Okay, cool. And we'll see some other things here. I don't know why that's so small, but anyway, when we print it out, it says boo, and then that, and then it repeats 7 times. Okay, nice. Another cool thing is with overloaded methods, you can also change the output type in addition. So maybe I want another version that input outputs a string and inputs, say, 2 versions, or 2 strings, string A and string B. Okay. So still, it has different inputs. So this still has 2 string inputs, which is different. Now, here, I could ever do something else. Maybe I don't print out anything at all. Maybe I just return A plus B. Just concatenate them. And I could call the method, which returns a string, and I could just do famous.noise and Angelina Jolie. I don't know if that's his wife or his ex. I'm not sure the situation. It doesn't matter. But that'll, again, look for the method that inputs two strings named noise, and then it would call this one in here. I didn't put a print line in that, so that won't do anything, but that's fine. Now, one notable thing is you cannot just change the return type. You must also change the input type. And hopefully this seems logical, because if you did this, say you wanted to have like some public int noise that input some string A and some string B, Java won't let this compile. Even if I do, return 4. When I try and compile this, it gives me this error right here. It says method noise, which inputs two strings, is already defined. So, and the reason this works is because, like, if I were to call it like that, how would Java know which one to call, right? Like, it's unclear which one I'm trying to call, and I can't tell by the context. So Java just doesn't let you do this. Java will not allow this, since there is already a noise with the matching, inputs. Okay, so I'm gonna have to comment that out. All right, so those are just some thoughts about the basics of overloading and how to call those. Calling them is no different than anything else. It just might be useful for you to have them, have multiple methods with the same name. Have we used anything like this? Have we done overloaded methods before? We have. Okay, so what are some overloaded methods we have seen? Feel free to pause for a sec, but one of the most common ones is substring. So say I have some string, let's say name, I guess I'm just on a Brad Pitt. Well, actually, you know what? Let's go with Edward Norton, his co-star in Fight Club, perhaps. Again, his greatest, but really a great movie. You should watch it if you haven't already. So there is a version of substring with two ints in parentheses. So if you wanted to just go ahead and just get Edward, I could just do name.substring and take the substring from 0 up to 6. Now we'll go 0 through 5. It doesn't include spot 6. But I can also call the substring with one int, and it goes from there to the end. So if I wanted to start at the W and go to the end, I could do substring from 2 to the length, but I could also just go ahead and take the substring from just substring 2, and that automatically will go to the end and give me the word there. Okay, so now I go ahead and compile that. We see there's Edward 06 and then Wardner. Okay, and man, you might even go a step further, because isn't system.out.println overloaded? Oh, println is overloaded too, right? This version takes an int. So you could have system.out.println that just print out the number 3. You could have a system.out.println that prints out a double. So say, 4.52. So this is just calling different overloaded versions of system.out.println. We've been using overloading all year. That's so incredible. OMG. Okay, so that's kind of cool and just shows you overloading is powerful. Use it with println, use it with substring. We're going to use it in our code as well. One other thing that might be useful, you might be curious about, can you overload a constructor? And the answer to that is yes, and this turns out to be very useful. So let's make a die class. Not like I want you guys to die, because I don't, I love you all. But let's say this is going to represent a die for a game. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this up. Now, a die for a game is going to have some number of sides. So I'm going to have some private int for the number of sides. Okay, now I could have a constructor set up a number of sides. Okay, so I could have some constructor, a public die, that inputs some int n. And in this case, I would just set up the num sides equal n. And if I wanted an n side, whether it was a 4-sided, a 20-sided, a 100-sided, I could use this constructor. But the default die only has 6 sides. So I could call a no input constructor like this. And this, by the way, if it has no inputs, it is called the default constructor. Just basically the, not built in per se, but just the constructor that has no inputs to it. So if I just do public die and just automatically set num sides to equal 6, I can do that as well. So this will compile. And then if I want to set up, if I want to set up a 6-sided die, I could do that in 2 ways. So I could say like die period 5 to be a new die, and I could just I could just set it up like that. I could call the no input constructor. Or I could also set up a die for period 6, perhaps a period that would appreciate the extra input. I could send it the number 6, and this would call the constructor with an int input. And both of these would set up a 6-sided die. They're just calling different methods to do that. And you might want to have different constructors with totally different purposes. And of course, if I wanted like a 100-sided die to represent how awesome period 7 is, you would have to set it up like this. You have to say die period 7 would be a new die. You'd have to call the version with an int. This is only for a 6-sided one. Okay, so that's overloading with constructors and other methods. I hope that was useful to you, and thanks for watching. Bring me some questions to class. I'll see you soon.